But I think it's time to start the program. So I'm Diane Walker. I'm the Edward H. Arnold University Librarian, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here to the Hesburgh Library this afternoon for today's series of events. As you might know, the university has just finished celebrating the 50th anniversary of this building. That milestone has given us a chance over the last year to reconnect with Father Hesburgh's original vision that this library and its famous Word is Life mural would stand as a symbol of academic excellence for all the world to see. Our look back anchored for us a renewed vision for the next 50 years, one that celebrates the library's mission of connecting people to knowledge and the important research partnerships that we steward here across the Notre Dame campus. Today, the Hesburgh Libraries are truly honored to be in this partnership with the Cushwa Center for the Study of American Catholicism, the Keough-Naughton Institute for Irish Studies, and many special guests to bring you the 2014 Hibernian lecture on Chief O'Neill's Music of Ireland. It's my pleasure now to introduce Kathleen Strauss-Cummings, who will usher us into this afternoon's program. Kathleen is an Associate Professor of American Studies at the University of Notre Dame. She is also the Director of the Cushwa Center for the Study of American Catholicism, and she holds concurrent appointments in the Departments of History and Theology. Her teaching and research interests include the history of women and American religion, and the study of U.S. Catholicism. Her first book, entitled New Women of the Old Faith, Gender and American Catholicism in the Progressive Era, was published in 2009 with the University of North Carolina Press. At present, she's working on a new book entitled Citizen Saints, Catholics and Canonization in American Culture. She received an NEH Fellowship to support work on this project during the academic year 2010-11. And now, Kathleen Cummings.
Thank you, Diane, for that lovely introduction. It's always a pleasure to work with Hesburgh Libraries, especially on an event as remarkable as this one. The 2014 Hibernian Lecture is also presented in collaboration with the Keough-Naughton Institute for Irish Studies, and I'm grateful to Chris Fox for his leadership and his collegiality on this occasion and always. The Cushwa Center has sponsored the annual Hibernian Lecture since 1982, when the Ancient Order of Hibernians provided the center with an endowment to support scholarship on the Irish in Ireland and the United States. And I would like to recognize all the members of the AOH and Ladies AOH who are with us today. Thank you very much. Over the years, your generosity has enabled us to feature many renowned speakers, and I think this year's lecture promises to be especially memorable. Our speaker this afternoon is Mícheál O'Sullivan, Chair of Music and Founding Director Emeritus of the Irish World Academy of Music and Dance at the University of Limerick. Noted for his development of a uniquely Irish traditional piano style, Dr. O'Sullivan has recorded extensively with the Irish Chamber Orchestra. He was awarded an honorary doctorate of music from the National University of Ireland at his alma mater, University College Cork, for his contribution to music in Ireland. He has released more than 10 CD recordings, including Elbrook Gleams, new and selected recordings released by EMI in 2011, and the music for Irish Destiny, a historic 1925 silent movie released on DVD by the Irish Film Institute in 2006. This year, he released Country Cycle, a limited edition CD of his music commemorating the Irish Republican Army officer Ernie O'Malley. His recent compositional work includes 3 songs for Iarla O'Linard and the RTE Concert Orchestra, Madison's Descent, a masque in 10 movements, Francesco's Walks for chamber orchestra and 6 traditional fiddlers, and When Heroes Sing, based on The Cure at Troy, a version of Sophocles' Philoctetes by Seamus Heaney, a work for orchestra and chorus, which will premiere at the DeBartolo Center for Performing Arts here at Notre Dame in 2016. Mícheál's topic for this afternoon is especially meaningful to us here at the University of Notre Dame, as our special collections houses the Francis O'Neill Collection. Francis O'Neill left Ireland in 1865 and eventually settled in Chicago. He served as a member of that city's police department and became chief of police there. Throughout his life, O'Neill was dedicated to the preservation of traditional Irish music and the collection of books in Irish history from around the world. In 1931, he donated his vast collection to the University of Notre Dame, and since then it has drawn scholars of Irish music and history from all over. We are very honored to have with us here today Chief O'Neill's granddaughter, Mary Lesh, and I think she's brought, we have a special surprise for the audience that Mary brought with us. Mary is here with Chicago historian Ellen Scarrett. In 2008, Mary and Ellen edited and published Chief O'Neill's remarkable memoir, which will be available at the reception that follows this event. We're very privileged to have Mícheál here with us today to deliver in words and music his presentation, Chief O'Neill's Music of Ireland. Please join me in welcoming Mícheál.
Thank you very much. Well, firstly, I think of this event not so much as an academic lecture or even a recital, as a celebration. It's a celebration of the life and the music of Captain Francis O'Neill. It seeks in a way once again to bring up out of the Hesburgh Library and out of the past in a way the amazing work that he did, so that we can begin to further evaluate it and that we can begin to build on it and create hopefully programs with our colleagues here in the Keough-Naughton Institute of Irish Studies, which will further the cause of Irish music and Irish music studies within the context of Irish studies. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is Exhibit A, as Chief O'Neill might have said in one of these courtroom appearances, because this, courtesy of Mary Leach, a great-granddaughter of Captain Francis O'Neill, is his whistle. And I'm not a great whistle player, but that won't stop me trying to play a tune at the end of this 40-minute presentation. And I know the one I'm going to play because I kind of had a hint that Mary was going to come along and bring this amazing reliquary with her. So I thought I'd play Chief O'Neill's favourite on it, but that's later on at this particular point. So yes, it is a celebration of O'Neill and his music. And this particular book, he had several books, of course, two main collections, one in 1903 and one in 1907. This is the one in 1903. It's a very elaborate book. It's about this size, green, ornate, very, very beautiful colour. If you see one anywhere, grab it. And there's about 1,500 tunes in it, 1,850 to be exact. Airs, jigs, reeds, hornpipes, song, dances, marches, etc. Music by Carlin. And I'm going to play examples. As you can see, this instrument is not here for no reason. I'm going to play examples mainly from this particular book, and in that way to celebrate Chief O'Neill, and there's the man himself. And I'm going to start with a piece of music, so that I don't bore you too long with the chat. And this, I love this tune. It's called Bonaparte Crossing the Rhine. And even the title of it is very picturesque. It's a hornpipe type tune. And of course, like in typically Irish fashion, all of the titles don't mean what they say. So it isn't that you're supposed to think of Bonaparte crossing the Rhine while you listen to the music. It's really just a way of identifying the tune. For example, there's a tune in the O'Neill collection that's called The Mouse on the Stairs. And I heard from somebody once, an older fiddler, how that got its name. They were playing in the kitchen, playing tunes on the fiddle, and a scratching sound was heard. They went out to investigate, and there was a mouse on the stairs. So they decided to call the tune The Mouse on the Stairs. And O'Neill has another tune in one of his collections with the very unusual title of Upstairs in a Tent. There's another tune that he has called The Hag with the Money. And there's even a tune, believe it or not, with the title I buried my wife and danced on top of her. So these tunes, I say, got their titles sometimes very late at night, very early in the morning, but it was a way of identifying the tunes. Some tunes have no titles, some more of them have up to a couple of dozen titles around the place. Here's Napoleon crossing the Rhine. O'Neill collected his music from traditional musicians in and around Chicago, mainly, and people would send him tunes as well. And these tunes, of course, would have been played by fiddlers and pipers, whistle players, flute players, fiddle players. Not pianists, of course, not piano players. So it raises the issue about like, what am I doing when I'm actually playing these tunes on the piano? I'm kind of translating them to some degree into another instrument. O'Neill was not against that because towards the end of his life he started to encourage a young Chicago pianist and arranger called Celina O'Neill, no relation, who was playing very, very much by ear. And O'Neill liked the way that she accompanied the tunes. He felt they were very, very sympathetic. It wasn't too arty, it wasn't too schooled, it wasn't too trained in the way that many other arrangements of Irish music would have been. So I like to think that he would be at least reasonably pleased to find the music not just staying directly in its traditional track, but also moving out to the sides and back in again. He was born in West Cork, down here, very near to Bantry. There's Bantry Bay, in a small townland called Trollybone. You can see Cork is over here. And this is the house actually pictured in 1996 as it exists today that he was born into. He was born in the 1840s, so right in the middle of the famine. But it was a reasonably well-off background, so he was saved a lot of that. I'm just going through some of this here to give you just some of the background to the life. Having gone to Cork at the age of, in his mid-teens, he became a cabin boy on board ship. For the next 4 years, he circumnavigated the globe before the age of 21. Now that's a cultural shock, as you can imagine, for a young lad from West Cork. to actually do that. So he showed a great deal of courage, entrepreneurship, innovation, passion. A very, very intelligent man, no question. And from the very, very beginning, very anxious to become well-read, even on board ship. Anytime he had an opportunity when they docked, he'd pick up books and trade them with other people. And even at that stage, he was starting to build a library of 1,500 volumes, which eventually, towards the end of his life, he was to bequeath here to the University of Notre Dame, where they're in the special collections section, the O'Neill collection, literally within a stone's throw of where we are right now. So his books are there, and many of the other books that he purchased and pulled together throughout his life. Eventually, at the age of 21, tiring of the life on the ocean waves, he decided to become a policeman. And before I go any further, let me acknowledge two books. One of them published in 1997 by Nicholas Carlin called Harvest Saved, Francis O'Neill and Irish Music in Chicago. And a lot of the photographic examples I'm showing you are actually from this book. So if anybody afterwards wants to follow through and find out some detail about O'Neill, that's one of two books that I'm going to recommend. A Harvest Saved, Francis O'Neill and Irish Music in Chicago by Nicholas Carlin. The other is this book here, edited by Ellen Skerritt and Mary Lesh, both of whom are with us in the audience, and I'm very, very honoured. It is Chief O'Neill's sketchy recollections of an eventful life in Chicago. His autobiographical memoirs, which he sketched down towards the end of his life in his 70s and in his 80s, which came out a number of years ago. And indeed, photograph there of Chief O'Neill's whistle, which I have here, literally, as I mentioned, right in front of me. This is a scene. You can see there's a policeman on the beat there. There's a close-up of him. And this is the world, initially, that Francis O'Neill would have walked into, how he would have started to make his living. He started at the bottom and worked his way up quickly. And as I say, with entrepreneurship, great sense of innovation, great sense of passion, great sense of administration, great sense of justice, which is very admirable when you read his recollections. He was very proud of that aspect of his own life that refused to be politically manipulated. And all his life he fought against any form of political interference within the structures of the police force. This is a shot of Deering Street Police Station in 1972, a number of years before O'Neill took his first promotion and came down here as desk sergeant. So he started to move at that stage. And you can see the badges here that he inherited, and that later on he was to go on to have redesigned and improved. So even right down to that detail, he was there. And before we know it, he becomes the new police head. He moves to City Hall, newspapers pick it up, and we have Chief O'Neill, or Superintendent, or his colloquially known Chief O'Neill, whose office is now moved to City Hall in Chicago. And the newspapers, this is a very nice one actually. I think I'll read it out and manage to see it. More thieves quit civic. Pickpockets are glad to escape, Chief O'Neill. I've said to many people, there's a Hollywood movie in this story around this man. There genuinely is. If the right person wrote the script, it came in at the right angle. All of the colours there, including a shipwreck. When he was circumnavigating the globe, there's a sort of Robinson Crusoe moment where he nearly starves on an island and is rescued. Got a lot of colour in it. Three dangerous men take a train from New York, sorrowfully declaring that they leave, that the graft is tough under the new police regulations. Makes another tour of the levee and sees improved. New York's plaint that Chicago thieves are invading east because of the activity of Chief of Police O'Neill was further justified yesterday when 3 of the most expert pickpockets in the West boarded the train for the Eastern metropolis. So, I mean, that's called, you know, dumping your problem and there you go. So I presume that has never changed. I wouldn't know. So 3 men, Ed Jacobs, James Kopek and Ollie Scott, said a sad goodbye to an escort of detectives as a nickel-plate train started on its run out of the city. The 3 pickpockets were arrested by detectives Roman and Morgan of the Central Station. When they were brought up before Lieutenant Roman, they begged to be let go, promising they'd leave the city at once. They were arraigned before Justice Prendeville, however, and each of them was fined $10 in costs. Prisoners again pleaded for release, and finally the police agreed to let the men go if they would leave Chicago at once. Justice Prendeville suspended the fines. Prisoners were escorted to a ticket office where they bought transportation for New York. As they were put on board the nickel train at 5 o'clock, Jacobs said, "This town is too tough a graft now. I don't want any of Chicago in mind when O'Neill is chief of police. Goodbye." So, that's very good. Yes. So, around that time, the Irish Music Club in Chicago, that's quite a full work, isn't it? It lasted really less than 10 years. And Francis O'Neill, in his memoir, does say that at the end everybody had fought with one another and most people weren't talking. We don't know what happened, but anyway, it's quite a bunch of people, and it shows in a way that after the famine, there's a sense where the spirit of Irish music, the zeitgeist of Irish music, had shifted location from Ireland itself into the United States, the East Coast, and down to Chicago, and increasingly across to the West Coast. And that spirit, you can see it, you can feel it in here. There's one point where O'Neill, before he joins the police force, he's sailing on the Great Lakes between Chicago and Buffalo. And at one point, he's on a ship with 30 sailors. They're all Irish. Every single one of them, he says, is speaking Irish. Gaelic. It's quite extraordinary. In the 70s, 80s. So that everybody, their first language, that they left Ireland with, Gaelic or Gaelic, which is, by the way, taught here to perfection on the campus of Notre Dame, which has, excuse me, which has the most developed Irish language program in the world outside of Ireland itself. And there are quite a few Irish speakers wandering around this campus, young American students and international students. Interesting one, he formed a friendship with James O'Neill, no relation, the place is full of O'Neills, of course. And there's something in here about how Francis got his music. He says, my grandfather, he says, I'm reading from his memoir here, the head of the O'Mahony clan in his day kept an open house of hospitality in the good old Irish way. Pipers, fiddlers and dancing masters availed themselves of it. And that's how my mother, of cherished memory, the eldest of 9 daughters, came to learn the scores of dance tunes she lilted, and which I memorised as she manipulated the spinning wheels or attended to her household duties in later life. Not less musical was my father, God be good to him, who sang the old songs in Irish and English while leaning back in his chair at his own side of the hob. So we know where he got the music. He got it from the family itself. And it wasn't music lessons or a music academy or music schools. He picked up the music as a first music in the way you pick up your language as a first language. You don't learn it in school. You learn it at home. And you already have it before you go to school. And you already are speaking it and you have it before you find out any grammar about it. So, but when it comes to meeting James O'Neill, he says, fortuitously I learned from Joe Cant, a noted Highland piper, that, quote, the best pair of Strathspeys you ever heard on the fiddle lived in the Rolling Mill district. This paragon, O'Neill was on, James O'Neill, when found shoveling coal, proved to be all that Joe Cant had claimed and much more, for he was an expert at noting down music from the singing, playing and humming of others. So James, who, by the way, surprise, surprise, got a job in the police force in Chicago. So James, for whatever reason, had mastered basic notation. So with this whistle, actual whistle, we can imagine Francis with James in his house, playing a tune on it and stopping, do it again. James is writing down the tune. Would you play it again? Try that again. So that's the way, of course, tape recording, anything like that. That's how you collected music in oral tradition, as it's sometimes called, or traditional music. And sometimes there was something with some notation. Who wrote it down? Why bother writing it down? For example, I've really been there, let's say, for 300, 400, 500 years, nobody written it down. Why bother writing it down? For O'Neill, it had to do with, he would have talked about preservation. He was nervous that the music might disappear. After all, he'd seen the language disappear, literally in a generation. Why wouldn't the music disappear as well if it fell out of fashion? And of course, it was competing against modernity, it was competing against the music hall, vaudeville, minstrelsy. It was competing against that wave as well, trying to hold its own. So the element of preservation would have been there. And 1,800 tunes in this book alone. And then in 1907, another 1,001 gems, as he called it, the additional 1,001 tunes are doing it. I'll talk a little bit more of that after playing some more music. Theatre fire inquest, O'Neill testifying in court after a Chicago disaster in 1904. O'Neill, I think, in retirement in 1905. O'Neill at 80, he didn't drink and he didn't smoke. And he's 80. So a very fine looking man married Anna Rogers, who was from Fecal in West Clare, whom he met on one of the boats that he was a sailor on as it headed for Boston. In many children, several of whom died, as was common enough at that time, through various diseases and things like that. And I'll talk about that gentleman in a minute. One of the interesting things about this particular book that I mentioned, The Music of Ireland, I call it Chief O'Neill's Music of Ireland, is that he collected, it appears, some music composed by this 17th, 18th century harper. He was a blind harper called Carlin. Carlin was born in 1670, died around the 1730s. And he was quite famous in his day. But some of the tunes apparently survived in what we would call oral tradition passed on by ear, not by books, not by anything like that, passed on by ear. And O'Neill has, I guess I can't remember exactly how many, about 70 of them in his collection. And I wanted to play some Carlin music to represent that aspect of O'Neill's collection. I just need a little bit of help here with a bit of notation myself. I'm going to play a set of 3. These are 3 tunes by Carlin, collected by Captain Francis O'Neill. And they also appear in collections in the 18th century, in the 19th century, and then at the opening of the 20th century by O'Neill. So when they appear, they're a little bit like musical snapshots. Think of them as snapshots, in a way. The tradition is moving. Like, for example, a horse is galloping. You take a shot at it. You take 5,000 shots at it. There still isn't a horse, and it's still not a movie. But you can see what I'm saying. So the music is always moving and shaping and changing in the biosphere. Every time you write it down, you've taken a shot at it. The main thing is don't confuse the written shot with the music. It's a shot of it. Don't confuse the still photograph of the horse with the live horse. And very often that confusion is done. Here's these. I will bother you with names that make it all sound like an examination otherwise.